And I call the Honourable Member for Hughes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's been a great pleasure this afternoon to rise to speak on the Fair Work Amendment, Protecting Vulnerable Workers Bill. First off, Deputy Speaker, I'd like to make the comment that the vast majority of employers in this country do the right thing when it comes to employing their staff. Because they know, Deputy Speaker, that one of the things about having a successful and well-run business is to have staff that you value, that are motivated, that you trust and you look after. In fact, many people that run small businesses, they actually treat their staff like a family member. And Deputy Speaker, one of the things that even for medium and larger sized businesses that enforces that good relationship between employer and employee is simply the disciplines of the marketplace. So when you have a diversified marketplace with many different employers in each section, if an employer, if he mistreats his employee, if he underpays them, the employee then has the option of going to another business to take up employment in another business. That's why, Deputy Speaker, we always must fight for great diversity in every single industry. Because no business can succeed, Deputy Speaker, if they have unmotivated employees that are being underpaid the rates. But, Deputy Speaker, having said that, there have been recent examples, a very small number of cases where there have been some employers that have been doing the wrong thing. And of course there was the well-documented case, the 7-Eleven, where, Deputy Speaker, some employees were actually taken by their employer down to the ATM to give a rebate out of their salary. A rebate, Deputy Speaker. Now this is clearly, of all members of the House agree, is completely unacceptable. So the bill does 5 specific things, Deputy Speaker. Firstly, it introduces a higher scale of penalties for what are described as serious contraventions of prescribed workplace laws. And taking your employee down to the ATM to get a rebate out of his salary, Deputy Speaker, is clearly a serious contravention. Secondly, it increases penalties for record-keeping failures. So where employers have to keep accurate records of the hours that their employees work and the rates that they are being paid. Thirdly, it makes franchisors and holding companies responsible for underpayments by their franchisees or subsidiaries, but only where they knew or ought to have reasonably known of the contraventions and failed to take reasonable steps to prevent them. The new responsibilities will only apply where franchisors and holding companies have a, quote, significant degree of influence or control over their business networks. Now, Deputy Speaker, in that third point, I think we have to acknowledge some of the concerns by the Franchise Council of Australia. They have legitimately expressed some concerns over the workings of this bill. And they, Deputy Speaker, are concerns that we should recognise, we should acknowledge, and we should monitor how they work. So the franchise system, Deputy Speaker, is a system that can be very important, it can be very efficient, it can generate a lot of wealth for our nation. And we cannot have a situation where we are putting copious amounts of red tape upon that sector, making them liable, Deputy Speaker, in situations where they do not have any control. The only upside, I would say, Deputy Speaker, is that I think all good franchise systems have a great responsibility to protect their good name and their goodwill. And it becomes in their interests to make sure that anyone that is using their name or using their franchise systems in doing so does respect the workplace laws of this nation. Because we see, Deputy Speaker, the damage that was done to the 7-Eleven brand from the bad publicity from the recent case far outweighed any economic benefits that franchisor of 7-Eleven would have received. Fourthly, Deputy Speaker, it expressly prohibits employers from unreasonably requiring their employees to make payments, which is a rebate, that is demanding a proportion of their wages to be paid back in cash. And fifthly, Deputy Speaker, it strengthens the evidence-gathering powers of the Fair Work Ombudsman to ensure that exploitation of vulnerable workers can be effectively investigated. Now, having said that, Deputy Speaker, during this debate, it has exposed the Labor Party's barefaced hypocrisy on the issue of penalty rates. Now, Deputy Speaker, we agree that the 7-Eleven case that we saw, where the workers were forced and actually to give a cash back of about $8 less per hour from what they were entitled to under the award, to give that back to the employer. We all think that is wrong, Deputy Speaker. But, Deputy Speaker, compare that to the situation that has been exposed recently in the debate on Sunday penalty rates, where a KFC worker, Deputy Speaker, on a Sunday, under the award, would get $29.16 per hour. Now, if a KFC worker got the award rate and they were taken by their employer down to the ATM and said, we want $8 rebate, we want $8 rebate out of your Sunday pay, Deputy Speaker, I think everyone in this parliament would think that is absolutely outrageous. But, Deputy Speaker, that is exactly what happens, almost exactly what happens, Deputy Speaker, because of the grubby union deal that was done with KFC. So someone working for KFC, Deputy Speaker, actually doesn't get that $29.16 an hour. They get, Deputy Speaker, $21.19 an hour because their union has done them this favour by doing them this great deal. Now, the member for Bendigo thinks this is actually okay and excuses this conduct because she says, oh, it's balanced out elsewhere. Deputy Speaker, how is it balanced out elsewhere if someone only works on the weekend? How does that happen, Deputy Speaker? That person is clearly worse off overall. Another example, Deputy Speaker, again, a McDonald's worker. Exactly the same thing happens to them. So if we say it's wrong, Deputy Speaker, for someone at 7-Eleven to have $8 taken off their award rate and given as a cash back to the employer, why is it correct for the unions to do a deal with McDonald's where that worker, Deputy Speaker, under the award would get $29.16 on a Sunday, but because of the deal done by the union, Deputy Speaker, cuts them back $8 to $21.08. Deputy Speaker, if we are going to condemn one, we should also equally condemn the other. Now, Deputy Speaker, the other thing that was interesting in the 7-Eleven case was the decision by Federal Circuit Judge Michael Jarrett in his comments. And he said, and I quote, he said he found the 7-Eleven franchisee had systematically exploited employees by implementing a business model that relied on deliberate disregard of employees' workplace entitlements. And he continued, he also recognised that it was vital to recognise the importance of maintaining a level playing field for all employees in an industry with respect to wage costs. Well, hang on, Deputy Speaker. The learned judge is correct. There should be a level playing field between employers that are in competition with each other with respect to wage costs. But, Deputy Speaker, that is not what is happening in the community at the moment. We've seen, Deputy Speaker, because of these dodgy union deals, selling off Sunday penalty rates, large unionised firms that employ unionised workers are a competitive advantage against small business. Let's just look at one example. Deputy Speaker, the award rate for a weekend for a family-owned pizza shop for $28.48 an hour. But in the union deal that was done, where they sold off the penalty rates, Deputy Speaker, Someone working for Pizza Hut gets $20.35 an hour. So how can that small business compete if because of those dodgy union deals, they're paying $8 more per hour for their labour? Deputy Speaker, this is the dodgy deals that the unions have done. Another example, Deputy Speaker. Someone working at David Jones, their penalty rate, Deputy Speaker, they get paid $29.53 an hour on a Sunday. But the small boutique across the mall that's competing against David Jones, Deputy Speaker, they have to pay $37.05. Again, it's a dodgy union deal that gives that union a competitive advantage over the small business. If we are going to condemn one, we certainly must condemn the other, Deputy Speaker. If we're going to say that these deals that are done by 7-Eleven, where workers have their penalty rates slashed and reduced, if we're going to say they're unfair, that that's unconscionable, Deputy Speaker, we need to say exactly the same thing of these union deals, Deputy Speaker, that have sold off workers' penalty rights for greater union control. Deputy Speaker, another comment I'd like to make on this. We think the idea of someone earning some money and having their employer taking a big rebate, a big chunk out of it, Deputy Speaker. But how is that different to the conduct that we've seen from our large supermarket chains, Coles and Woolworths, in relation to small employers? We had the recent case, Deputy Speaker, where Coles admitted that they had engaged in unconscionable conduct. What they actually did, Deputy Speaker, after they had their suppliers had supplied them the goods and they paid them the price under the contract, they went back and they said, no, we want more, Deputy Speaker. We need more. And Justice Gordon said in that case, Deputy Speaker, the ACCC took Coles to court, said Coles' conduct was serious, deliberate and repeated. Coles misused its bargaining power. Its conduct was not done in good conscience. It was contrary to Qantas. Coles treated its supplier in a manner not consistent with acceptable business and social standards which apply to commercial dealings. Coles demanded payments from suppliers to which it was not entitled by threatening harm to the suppliers that did not comply with the demand. Coles withheld money from suppliers it had no right to withhold. Coles' practices, demands and threats were deliberate, orchestrated and relentless. Deputy Speaker, how is that conduct any worse than what we saw at the 7-Eleven case? It is abuse of their dominant position. It is abuse of their market power, Deputy Speaker, to extract a rebate, a discount from someone that has supplied them a good or a service or their labour that is unjustified. We must condemn both, Deputy Speaker. And what the concern is, there was a similar case involving Woolworths. And the court, Deputy Speaker, found that Woolworths did not engage in unconscionable conduct with their Mind the Gap program, where it systematically sought to raise as much as $60 million from suppliers. Now, the court in that decision, Deputy Speaker, said that the ACCC failed to prove that Woolworths' conduct was unconscionable, and it accepted Woolworths' defence that demanding money from suppliers was consistent with the ordinary nature of the retail and supplier relationships and is common practice in grocery retailing. Common practice. There is one thing, Deputy Speaker, for hard negotiations. To bargain, to ask for something, to ask for a special deal, a special rebate, there is nothing wrong with that, Deputy Speaker. But what makes it unconscionable is where the purchaser has a significant degree of market power over that supplier. Firms, Deputy Speaker, in our grocery retailing sector, where they are relying, where they would have 50% or more of their business supplying to one of those large retailers, are not in a position to say no to any demand. They have long-term leases on plant and equipment. They have ongoing obligations to their employees that they just can't turn off like their tap. They have overdrafts with their banks. They have contracts with their supply chain and subcontractors. They are not in a position, Deputy Speaker, to say no. Because if they lose 40 or 50% of their business overnight, It cannot be replaced. So they are placed in a position, Deputy Speaker, where they cannot say no. If we're going to condemn one, Deputy Speaker, we must stand and condemn both. I thank the House.